Today, I'll be talking about my first experience with rolling tubes, as in these things. Glass, to be clear, that glow. The brand I will be discussing is PSVANE, who generously sent out a set of tubes for me to check out with my Cayin HA-3A tube amp. Now, I'm telling you this up front because I think it's important to understand that I'll be discussing my experience from a novice standpoint. So I will humbly ask that you leave your comments and opinions on this video in the comments down below after watching. If there is anything you would have liked for me to cover in more detail or just differently, I'd love to know for future tubes that I'll roll, because this is yet another rabbit hole in this hobby that can be a lot of fun and a lot of expense. So hide your wallet or just have your spouse take it from you and thank me later. What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I'll be talking about the PSVANE Horizon series of tubes, and more specifically, a set of 12 AU7 tubes. Now, it's important to note that these were sent out to me from PSVANE in exchange for my honest thoughts and opinions. They have not asked me to say anything in particular, which is good because noob, if that's even a relevant term in 2024. Now, I don't want to forget to say thank you to PSVANE for allowing me to roll some fresh tubes in my HA-3A that I love so much. Hey everyone, quick interruption here to ask you to consider subscribing to the channel and like the videos if you haven't done so already. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me in that way, and I want to take this time to thank all of my Patreon members so far. All right, let's get back to the video. So PSVANE makes a few different series of tubes to purchase. On the high end is their Acme series, which is their flagship tubes. These tubes can set you back over $1,000 for just a match set of 300B tubes, for example. These are followed by their WE series of tubes on the high end, which seem to fall in the sub $500 range. Then you have the basic line that they offer, which is the Hi-Fi or UK series. In other words, more standard-based and cost-friendly. Now in the middle is the Art series that were first released a few years ago. These are noted with their gold-clad pins for conductivity and longevity. They also fall into more of a budget pricing in general. Now the Horizon series is in the same select category as the Art series and is said to be more of a neutral sound and incorporates the latest technology such as HPC coating on the glass. This is to ensure less signal distortion and a more stable output. Now the price of the 12 AU7 tubes I have here will set you back just $54.99 for a matched pair. The 300B, for reference, would set you back about $214 for a matching set. Now, there isn't a whole lot to say on the total build and design on these, other than I will tell you that on one of the tubes I did have a slightly bent pin, but nothing that gave me issues slotting it into the amp. Tube glow is definitely a thing I am finding, and these do not have a big glow as it stands. It's more of a withering candle type glow from my perspective. Now, I had no issues plugging these in or unplugging them from my amp during my time with them. As far as the unbox, it's honestly nothing special. These come in a simple white box that says PSVANE on the cover with their logo. Then the two boxes of tubes are found in the box, and they aren't packed in any particular way to provide extra protection. For this price, it makes sense, though for them being glass, I would have hoped for a bit more protection, especially coming from e-tailers like Amazon, because you just never know. A quick note on the technicals behind these tubes. These are designed as a medium gain dual triode vacuum tube. PSVANE is boasting that these will have 30% longer lifespan and consistency due to the improvements made with the Horizon series. Each tube is said to go through an extensive pre-burning process. They undergo at least 24 hours of burn-in test before they leave the factory to ensure they are delivered in a stable and reliable condition. I will say that upon first plugging them in, I did get some noise out of the right channel that I didn't get with the stock tubes from my HA-3A. Now, I did switch up the tubes from left to right just to check if it was the tube itself, but after using these for some time, I can report that the noise has reduced significantly and pretty much silent. So I feel pretty good with saying both tubes are performing well. Now with the HA-3A, noise tends to be more prominent when using my XLR or RCA outputs of the amp and not so much with the 4.4. I notice this especially on higher impedance headphones or more sensitive IEMs that I've tested. Noise is just a factor of tube amps that everyone goes through. It can be attributed to so many factors, so I can't say for certain that it was the tubes and not something else in the environment causing it. Still, I think it's notable to report on it, but nothing that I consider to be a deal breaker or terrible. I mean, I once had a simple USB-C to USB-A dongle adapter that was causing all of my noise issues in an amp after I had ripped apart every wire in my room and even bought a power conditioner, which I recommend anyway, but yeah, we've all been there, right? As for Microphonics, I did a simple pencil test with an eraser to see how these responded. Again, they respond well, and just as PSVANE says, no Microphonics were heard, as in I heard the taps, but not ringing or spring noise coming from either channel. In fact, I had to tap pretty hard with a finger on the side of my amp before I heard any type of springy sound, and it was very faint at that. So again, all good there. So when listening to my HA-3A, I did so paired up with the Holo Cyan 2 R2R DAC. This was fed from my Holo Red streamer, which was playing Tidal through Rune. I tested out a variety of headphones from my ZMF Atrium Closed and Ultra Classic for a higher impedance dynamic driver pairing. I also tried out my Sennheiser 6XX to see how they would respond. Then for planars, I had my Audio Organic on hand to pair up as well. Now, I did try out other headphones and even a couple of IEMs, but it's the 4 mentioned here that I focused on to give me a solid understanding of what these tubes bring for sound quality. Now, I should also add for clarity that I did compare these directly to the stock tubes of the HA-3A, which are the JJ12AU7s. Starting out with the quality of low-end response, I can say these have good weight and good thickness going on. It was definitely noticed on my Atrium Closed being an addictive bass response of that headphone that I love so much. Now, I wouldn't say it added more quantity, just a texture of thickness and almost a gooiness of sound that you can get from tubes. Even the stock tubes of my HA-3A produce a good bass response. I just felt a touch more fullness for the Horizon series. Also, I say it didn't add quantity because when using the 6XX, I did not get more out of the low-end extension than I typically would. Same for the other headphones that I tested, but I do feel as though there was excellent separation and speed, so I didn't get any kind of smearing or muddiness in anything I tested, nor did I feel as though it was blunted. Now, mid-range quality, quantity, and fullness were a point of emphasis here. The HA-3A at its stock version is a full-sounding amp with the mids. It is almost a Cayin house flavor, if you will. Now, I found the mids here to be lush and a hint of warmth even. Resolution was excellent and many live recordings felt spacious. Vocalists had texture, and of course, this is going to be dependent on the headphone used. The O2R Classic is such an excellent mid-centric headphone, and this was a wonderful pairing. Also, the impact nature of it all was showcased here as well. I got that fun ZMF punchiness that I enjoy, which also showed up with the 6XX. Saxophones and guitars had such a solid grippiness to them as well. Well, I wouldn't say grip for saxophone, but more so just a full space resolution of sound and vibrato. For instance, I had wrote down the word grip in all caps when I listened to artists like Stevie Ray Vaughan on the Atrium Closed. The O2R Classics and Audio Organic are headphones that have some forwardness to the mids. I didn't feel like this added to that forwardness, and if anything, it made them less of a striking nature they can sometimes present with either shout or aggressive vocals. This again speaks to that warmth that I keep talking about. It is smooth. Very, very smooth. Going into the treble was my biggest surprise here. It is warm and sweet. It completely tamed the Audio Organic and made it not stabby at all. It's like taking the knife out of Michael Myers' hands. I was honestly shocked by it all, but not in a spooky sense. For instance, the stock HA-3A tubes are not a pairing I care for at all with the Organic. It is almost a cold and harsh sound that can even be a bit thin to me at times. Certainly not with the Horizon series tubes. I also noticed this with the Atrium Closed, as even that headphone can lean a bit bright at times depending on the tracks. Now, one track I always test for stabs is Little Wing by Ainsley Lister. That guitar can pierce on brighter headphones, and it just did not do that with anything here. Call me impressed. Impressed and sometimes disappointed, only because the warm nature of the high end can lead to a bit less refined details. Some instruments just didn't have the same sharpness to them on the trailing ends of notes. Call it more of a rolled off nature of things, or just not as articulate of a sound. Now, I should be clear that I wasn't blown away by details, nor do I think these are going to be as technically sound as some of the higher end tubes, but for this price, I think it performs very well. In fact, overall, I prefer this sound, and not just for the warmth, over my stock tubes of the HA-3A. I do feel staging is about the same, if not perhaps a little more closed in, but it wasn't anything that I ever felt too close. It also did not take away from the layering or holographic imaging that I can get from the organic or even the atrium. All right, so that about wraps up my first experience with rolling tubes. Considering these were just $55 for a match set, I've been impressed and very satisfied so far. It has made me fall in love even more with the HA-3A and the experience I get with ZMF, and now even my Aria Organic. It's also going to drop me further down the rabbit hole, as this has me very intrigued to try out other tubes. Now, I do have a set of 6v6 power tubes that I'll be swapping to shortly to see how much more I can expand and change up the sound of the HA-3A. Those are not PSVANE, by the way, as they do not make 6v6 tubes in this series. Still, I may do a short update upon doing so to let you all know how it's going. Now, hopefully you enjoyed this video and my thoughts on the PSVANE Horizon series of tubes. I'd love to see any feedback you may have in the comments down below. I do want to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.